Welcome to FedScoop TV and our special series on advancing digital government in the cloud and hybrid IT. I'm your host, Wyatt Cash, and today we're with Sarah Fahden, Associate Chief of Verification Program for the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I'd like to start off by asking to help give your vision for how you see cloud computing, both maybe infrastructure as a service or software as a service or platform as a service, helping to really advance digital government at your agency over the next year or two.
It really is the wave of the future. We are on the verification program already almost fully in the cloud at this point. We are currently undergoing a large modernization program. So we are modernizing into the cloud, and we have actually, as of June, we will be fully shifted over even with our legacy applications.
Wow.
So, and across USCIS, it's a huge initiative. So we're trying to move applications, or rather modernize them as best we can, to move them and shift them into the cloud. We are using some other software as a service platforms as well, where it makes sense to do so and where the data isn't as sensitive.
Share a little about your lessons about migrating to the cloud. We know there's a sort of a technology lift, but there's also a change management component. How did you go about preparing your staff to kind of go through the adjustments of moving to the cloud?
Honestly, it was a cultural change. I think across the board within USCIS, and even on my program specifically. Right now, we're used to having these large integrators work at a data center to help us spin up servers and configure things. And that process is really slow, bureaucratic, and tedious. And so transitioning over to a cloud platform makes our lives so much easier, and it's actually a lot cheaper as well. So, you know, it was hard for, I think, the personnel to get their minds wrapped around how that would actually work and how this was possible. But once they figured it out, then they really jumped into it and loved it. I think everybody on my team is already fully, you know, when can we get this over here as fast as possible, and let's get rid of all of those old processes. So from a change management perspective, we also, we're using all agile methodologies, and we store all of our code in Git. And so we sort of can track any changes that happen, you know, via Git, because that's our software repository. And then in addition to that, we have fully automated all of the development efforts and all of the infrastructure efforts. So we don't have personnel actually really touching the production systems at all. Everything goes through the pipeline, is automatically tested, and then is released to production. And on my team specifically, we've actually recently achieved continuous deployment. So we don't have a big release, you know, sort of, can I go to production? We just automatically go via the pipeline to production.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's an important milestone.
It was a huge achievement, yes.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little about how you also envision the cloud services helping advance or even transform the actual digital services you provide the public at your agency, and how you see that evolving over the next couple of years. What kind of new services or improved services do you envision being able to provide?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I think that's the most important thing that IT programs should focus on. At verification, we use a very value-driven approach, and the program and OIT are very hand-in-hand and lockstep. We assign dedicated product owners from the field who actually are users of the application or come from the policy shops who work with the customers that we interface with. And all of our approaches, we focus first on the value that it's going to provide to both the public and our internal users as well, ensuring that their needs are met in a rapid way with small iterations at a time. We're far away from the waterfall approach, and being in the cloud has actually really enabled us to be able to provide better value much quicker. And then if we roll something out that doesn't work, you know, we're not afraid to fail. It's okay. Like, nobody's perfect, right? We go back and we quickly change it. When we have software bugs, for example, we change it within an hour, and then it's rolled out and fixed within an hour.
And thinking about how the public facing in to use your services, do you envision Any enhanced capabilities?
Oh,
or
we've provided them lots of enhanced capabilities.
So an example might be?
For example, on the enrollment program for the
Okay.
client service enrollment under the verification program for E-Verify,
Okay.
we have released that to the public, and they have expressed a large happiness with what we've provided.
Because it
They're
makes
very
it
happy
easier
with
for
it.
it to do,
It's
faster.
it's a much more streamlined process. We use user experience develop. We have a user experience person assigned to every project, and so they work directly with the users, and we have value groups and things. And then there's feedback mechanisms on every page that we release. So it's very we streamline the process. We streamline the way it is, provided to the customers, and the way that the design is provided so that it is very user-friendly. And then we also provide what's called a preview environment. So for large features, it's a production environment users can opt into. It's called preview. And they're allowed to see new features as they become available before they get released to everybody. And so we have a lot of users that opt in to use that feature, and then they get to see the features and provide comments back. And they're using them live in production.
And is the cloud making that easier to do
absolutely.
than the previous
Yes.
platform
We're very
approach?
fast. We're very fast. In fact, once we got our modernization program approval, which was in September of 2015, we went live with our first piece of application that uses production data and was released to production users in December of 2015.
That's sprinting by all measures.
It was pretty fast.
Good for you. Lastly, what's advice do you have about, or maybe your thoughts on one or two things that you might change if you could that would help accelerate or help agencies think about accelerating the adoption of cloud computing?
That's a good question. I think culturally there needs to be a large shift within the government and within some of the processes that are very waterfall still. I think we had good processes in mind when they were built years and years ago, and they made sense at the time. But now that we are doing things so much more quickly within the cloud, a lot of those processes just don't make sense, and we need to change the way that we're thinking about them. So, for example, the change management processes, where you go through this high documentation, a lot of documentation in order to make changes to something, it doesn't really make sense in today's day and age. It's just it takes days to go through those processes, and then the change takes seconds. I think as long as we're tracking the changes, that's what the purpose is. Nobody goes back and looks at those documents, weeks, months, years later.
Right.
So what does it actually serve? And so I think looking at the value in the processes that we go through in order to do things, and then creating value-driven processes is how we need to be thinking about things in the future.
And I understand that you've given good thought to kind of this hybrid environment. Can you talk a little bit further about that, of how you see the cloud augmenting or working together in a hybrid situation?
Right, so when we first started modernizing, we definitely used a hybrid IT approach. We had our legacy system in the data center, and then as we strangled off a small piece at a time, we built that up in the cloud. And so we were, in all intents and purposes, using a hybrid IT approach. As of June, we'll have that legacy system brought over, and then they'll both be in the cloud, the same cloud environment. But we've deployed container technology, and so that if we needed to move and do hybrid again, this will enable us to very easily be able to do that in a short period of time, because it's all containerized, including all of the checks. The whole application will be containerized. So we've deployed that now, and we can meet that need if necessary.
Super.
Very easily.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing some of your
you.
insight. Congratulations on the progress that you've been making, and
Thank you.
appreciate your sharing some of the things you've been learning as well.
You're welcome.
Terrific. On behalf of FedScoop TV, I'm Wyatt Cash. Thanks for watching.